Jared, tell us a little bit about today, the good, the bad, the ugly of your real estate journey, because everybody can connect with the good times when it's going good for them, but it's easier for us to really learn about what didn't work and sort of what you did to turn that around. So take a minute, Jared, tell us about you personally, and give us an overview of your real estate business.
Okay, well, where do you start? From the beginning. So my name is Jared Chamberlain. We're actually up in Calgary, Alberta, which is up in Canada, so north of Montana, and it's sunny here, no more snow, so that's wonderful. But we've been doing real estate, so my wife and I do it together, Rebecca, and we started in 2004, 2005, right around that time, and kind of did it together, found out we were having kids, moved towards having a team, and ever since then, for the last 8 or so years, have been growing a team, kind of figuring that out. And currently our team right now, actually we just went independent as a brokerage as well. So we did that in December. And yeah, there's about 13 of us, including support staff and that kind of thing. So that's a little bit about what it is.
That's awesome. And what did you and Rebecca do prior to real estate, Jared? What kind of attracted you to real estate, and what'd you do before?
Oh, I don't know if anything attracted me to real estate. No, so before I was in youth ministry. So I was a youth pastor, working at a big church. That's where Rebecca and I met. At the church, she was working with the junior high, and I was working with senior. And we got married, and we both couldn't work in the same department. So she moved into real estate, and then I joined about 6 months later, and kind of just went from there.
That's really cool. So before we start asking you some questions, start us off with like your favorite success quote, sort of something that guided you, maybe how you apply it to your everyday life and business.
Yeah, so the quote, I'm actually just going to pull it up really quickly. The quote that I love, that I found is, has been really, I just kind of keep going back to it all the time. It's Jim Rohn. Basically, it says, "Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better. Don't wish for less problems, wish for more skills. Don't wish for less challenge, wish for more wisdom." I did have it saved because there was actually a second quote that I never read before, and I pulled it up last week and I shared it with the team. Oh, dang it, but it's gone. But that's essentially it. Is anything that we want, anything that any place that we're going after, chasing dreams, desires, anything like that, it's we have to be better. So who is the better version of myself, and what do they deserve? Because who I am right now isn't, I don't deserve what I want yet. I have to be better and become a different person in order to get what that person deserves. So that's kind of how I keep looking at that. So
yeah, very cool. And so when you read that quote and you are, maybe in the weeds at the moment and just not feeling like you're measuring up or your goals are measuring up to what you want, how do you make those changes? Like what's your go-to when you're just not achieving what you want?
I use Stacy's cell phone and call her. No. What do I do? I think like everyone, you feel the pressures, right? Like you just feel, I think you just have to take a step back. And I think sometimes you have to figure out, for some people, it's you have to get yourself out of the weeds. For me, it's constantly going back. Okay, what do the numbers say? Where are we at? And get out of emotions and go analytical. And so I kind of go that way. For other people, I know it's different things, but for me, it's looking, okay, how, and that's actually also looking at the gap. It's looking backwards and saying, okay, you know what, man, like where we were last year to where we are today might be the same number of transactions, but here's where we're better. And just going to gratitude, going to the small, simple things as well. It's just like tonight is my daughter's dance performance or daughter's dance performance. So it's just like those small things, and it's going to the small meaningful things versus these big massive things, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Really going back to a couple things you mentioned, sort of back to the basics, like this is our numbers.
Yeah.
So how do we get better? But then also there's other things in life that really matter, and, making those
Oh
our
yeah.
success journey too.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, like at the end of the day, um, like Lars and I and a couple of the guys were talking, it was just like, it's just real estate. Like I think on Tim Heil, he said that on the podcast that Lars did with him. I think that's who it was.
Yeah.
But he's like, it's just real estate. And at the end of the day, you're like, we'll be fine.
Right.
It's just like, yeah, it's just real.
Right.
Thinking of actually this past week.
It's easy to get caught up, thinking
Yeah.
that it has to be the end all be all of everything. And you're right. And at the end, it's not what matters most, but it's a vehicle to help you, get where you're going. So let's talk about something that most people don't really share in our industry. Everybody's quick to put up their highlight reels on Facebook, and they're quick to tout what they're really good at. But let's talk about some failures, because I think that's where the education really comes from most people, and it can really help them in their journey. So tell us about some of your failures, maybe tougher times when it wasn't fun, maybe you've considered giving up. Kind of give us some of that.
Well, I'm assuming Joel's watching, so Joel left, like failure. Just kidding. I think the biggest failures, one, like hard times, is hiring wrong people, not knowing how to look for the right people, not knowing how to filter out, and then you let these suckers into your life, and they just create disturbance. I mean, that for sure. Some of those have happened, and then actually not being able to know when to cut ties, and you let it go too long and it brings somebody else down. So small story, basically hired an ISA. It was horrible. Well, we didn't know any better, right? Because you're just trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
Bad hire, bad core value fit. She's starting a side business side while she's working for us, and we had no clue. And then basically from there, she just kind of kept spiraling downwards, and she brought our admin with her as well. And there's just negative, like awful feeling when you walk into the office, and it's like, what's going on? And you're just so busy doing deals, so busy in everything, for me, I didn't notice it. And 2-3 months of that, you're like, what the hell's going on? And so from that, it was fire one right away. And she's gone too, but now you're replacing 2 people because of one person coming in. It wasn't the right fit. And so that was huge. And so lesson learned, we hired a photographer 2 weeks ago, a photo video guy, and just good core value fit. But you could tell if we didn't learn the lessons before, we would have just kept on trying. Let's make it work. Let's make it work. Into it, I'm like, you're fired. This is not working. And learning how to cut ties quickly with bad decisions versus trying to force something to work that wasn't. So that'd be one thing. Try working with your spouse. That's always can be a failure and a win in the same hour. So I think there's just those kind of things. I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it definitely does. And so as you're learning now to hire, because sometimes after you hire and it was a bad hire, or you thought it was a great hire and for some reason it was just this misfit, what changes did you put into place, or what are you changing to make sure that that process does go better? Or maybe how did you know, for instance, the one hire that was really bad and you fired fast, what did you put in place to know they were the wrong people, so you're not trying to convince yourself that they're good even though they're not?
I think a lot of it was, instead of just having a blind eye to it, was trusting the people that I do trust in our team and their feedback. Because one of our admins, if I know she's flustered and frustrated about something, then it's legit. And same with Rebecca, like my wife, if and trusting her gut and her instincts on things has been huge, because before it was like, well, no, let me do it. But it's really just trusting everyone around. That's one. So becoming more self-aware and trusting of others. And the other was just systems in place. So using specific systems to be able to have 200 applicants come in for a photo video role, and being able to, narrow that down in a funnel, and doing certain tests and personality tests and things like that to be able to start understanding. I've looked at so many discs and met with so many people now that I look at a disc and be able to say, okay, this is probably who you are, and this is how we're going to interact. And you're 75% right, which is really, really good. So it's just honing the skills of trying to figure that out through the different tests and stuff like that too. So yeah.
And you mentioned something that was really important, and I think it is getting enough people in the funnel so you can make a better decision.
Yeah.
Because if you're only choosing from 3 or 4, they may look like the best candidate, but are they the best candidate for the position, or are they just best out of the 3 that you got?
That's exactly it. Yeah.
So some point in your journey, I'm sure a light bulb came on, you had this like aha moment where you either saw the world differently or maybe broke through like a really tough obstacle. Tell us about some of those moments of truth. Like, what are some lessons you learned from those experiences?
Some big ahas. I think one of the big ahas happened earlier on was realizing that we can't sustain or grow. Actually, you can sustain, but you can't grow a business off of limited. And so we were really good, and still are very good at our sphere and repeat and that kind of thing. But we didn't have any other sources. And so adding in buyer lead gen sites and different ways of capturing sign calls and all those different things was really, really important, because you just have to be able to have more legs to stand on than just one. That was something we learned early on, and that's why we went the way we did, which many people do. I can't think of another. I mean, I'm sure there's many, but
how about, working with your spouse? Because even if people don't have a spouse in the business, working with a business partner or somebody very closely can sort of feel the same way. So any insights you had there? What worked? What didn't? What did you guys realize in the process?
So, working with a spouse. I think the big thing with that is one, it's a lot of trust, and trusting the other person and knowing what each other's doing, figuring out what you're good at, and sharing similar values, similar dreams, that kind of thing. I think honestly, I think partnerships would be harder than working with a spouse, because self-interest, you're working harder, or I'm working harder than you, conversations come into play. I think a partnership would be way harder, because at the end of the day, my marriage is going to be more important than this business, and we can slow down the business. But if that's really hard to do. So, but I think a lot of it is just super open communications, and also figuring out what your roles are and stay in your lanes, and then be able to give advice or input on either person on what they're doing, but really to know your roles very, very clearly, and they have to be different, I think, too, because if you're both going after things and you're both doing one person might be doing a little bit more marketing, the other person might be a little bit more doing team training. That's not a big enough difference, maybe. Where if you have these defined roles that are very specific, I think that can create something better. But again, you don't see that happen that often. Because partnerships can blow up a lot quicker than I think a husband and wife team can. So
yeah. And for many people, no matter if they have, a business partner or not, it could be, spouse, could be just a different business partner, could be just them and an admin. How did you guys go about the process of really determining what roles needed to be covered by who? Because I think that can be a big block for a lot of people, right?
Yeah.
Making sure anybody in the business is doing their highest and best use so that the company can move forward, like you mentioned.
Well, I think at first you really have to I think at first you really have to be able to take that time, and I think this is the hardest part. Let's say when it's just you and admin, to take that time to actually list out what are all these roles, right? Because if you don't take that time to and start going, okay, what is important? If this thing gets dropped, this specific role gets dropped, then what happens? And it's looking at that, because if you don't take that time to do that, that's step one, because then you have this long list. And as new things happen, things change, you have to tweak that list consistently or continually. And so I think once you start there, then you can start divvying up and say, okay, what is someone really good at, and start figuring that out. But then where we're at now, it's also then teaching our people to delegate even further. And like some of our admins are just yes people, our support staff. And the problem is they can't be yes people for everything.
Yeah.
And so like we have a couple, our nanny actually does a lot of running around in the afternoons when our girls are at school, for our admin, just to help. And so teaching her how to delegate to somebody else is like a whole other task, or it's just naturally going, no, you're not doing that anymore. And it's protecting the pace of the team too. And that's a big leadership role that I think is overlooked. It's very easy to say, okay, let's double our revenue, let's double this, let's keep pushing. But at what point is it enough? And at what point do you just kind of say, let's just do this, let's go here, and just try to figure that out? And I think that's a tough challenge. But being able to teach, and coach the rest of the team, and you can't coach or teach someone something you haven't technically done yourself, or at least gone down that journey. So it's like anything. If you're not prospecting, the team's not going to prospect if they don't know that you can do it. Like I haven't prospecting calls for, oh my goodness, probably 2 years, maybe a year and a half. But we did a call night the other week, and I set the most appointments of the team. I was like, whew. But it was like, okay, they can see that I can do it if I need to, right? And so it's like, okay, let's listen to what's being said, maybe. I don't know. But it's knowing that you can do those things. So you have to learn it first.
Yeah, I love that. You brought up, 3 big nuggets that I hope everybody caught. So I just want to kind of recap. So when we were talking about really taking different roles and making sure people are in their highest and best use, really using a form like a delegate, elevate, what do you love and you're good at? What do you like and you're good at? What do you do not like and you're not even good at it? And putting all those things on a piece of paper, you'll be amazed at the stuff you're concentrating on is generally you don't like and you're not good at, and you're stuck in the weeds. And then secondly, another thing you mentioned was not everything can be a 5-alarm fire or everything's top priority. You really have to measure yourself and for others what needs to be done now. What could be done later? You could put together a system like an A, B, and C, even just for your team. And then lastly, when you were I forgot my point. What was your last one? You were just talking about it. What was the last thing you were talking about? Oh goodness, I totally forgot.
See, I wasn't listening to me, so.
You weren't listening to yourself. Shoot, the last part was awesome. Yeah. Oh, maybe somebody typed it in here. Oh, protecting the pace of the team.
Oh, pace of the team, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And making sure the team understands as well, you know, where you're all moving. Oh, and leading by example. That's what I was going to talk about.
Yes.
Where you have, if you're going to expect something and inspect it, you need to know what can be done, how to do it, even if it's for a short period of time.
Yeah.
So I love that as well.
A great quote that someone told me was, you can do anything for 90 days. And I think that we think a lot more of that in business, even personal, and I need to take that more personally too. But like, if you need to change something, so figure it out, right? And as we've had people leave the team or join the team, when you're in the middle of it and you're like one of our listing coordinator, sorry, she ended up having hip surgery. I mean, she's 30. She had some hip dysplasia thing, which fantastic. She got this done, but it's like, she's just back to work today. It's spring. Like, it's awful.
Yeah.
Maybe put like, I don't know, 6 or 8 listings. And so it's just like, okay, guys, we all got to step up. We can do this for 90 days to help her figure this out, get her back. She'll be back. Don't worry. But yeah, it's not been fun, but it's just part of it, right?
Yeah.
So
it is. You know, one thing I think we all struggle with, and for sure business owners, so all of us as real estate agents or any type of business owner, is really enjoying the ride. You know, it can be life, it could be in business, it could be family. What kind of practices do you put in place to help you enjoy the ride more?
I don't know. It's really hard. There's days where it's really fun and you enjoy it. You have good people around you and that kind of thing. But there's also days where it's just like, what the f am I doing? Right? And I feel that, and especially when you have a lot of things being thrown at you. And so I know for Rebecca, one of her things is just really going running. For her, it's just getting up and doing it. For me, because I'm not necessarily selling at this moment, it is after school, like dinner, putting to bed, kind of, if she's out, she's home, whatever. But it's finding those little moments where it's just like, okay, good, you know, and connecting with yourself. I wish I said I do meditate for this, that, blah, 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 and use this app for this and what. It's just like, I can't handle all that all the time, right?
Yeah. It's distracting.
Super distracting. And so I think part of it is, oh shoot, I gotta do my vision board. I have to display it to the team tomorrow, so I should probably finish that.
Yes.
Board. You know, and it's having those things, like I have a picture right here with my girls and it says, "We're counting on you, Daddy." And it's just things like that just kind of, okay, you know. And I let when my girls come to the office, I let them write on my board. I actually just say, okay, go do whatever you want. So there's a picture of a butterfly, and my daughter wrote, "Keep working hard," and "I love you, Daddy," and just that kind of stuff that they wrote can just make, it's just your why, right? And it's just tying it into it really, really clearly. So
yeah. And one important point with that is bringing those elements to you. So sometimes we have a hard time remembering our why, or maybe that's not it. I don't know. It doesn't seem to make me want to do anything. I don't think a why makes you do something. It's the emotions that it evokes by seeing it, hearing it, feeling it. So you mentioned connection and bringing that into your office. So I love that you have those things around that really bring you back to, hey, this is tough, but in that small moment, I can look at those pictures and think there is a reason that, you know, I'm working hard because those little girls mean the world to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And how do you help your team with that and sort of bringing, you know, so they can help, you know, keep that why? Do they do vision boards as well?
Yeah. Mm, I don't know why. Oh, we were on holidays and they did it. That's why I haven't done mine. But
You
back in
usually do it
February,
together?
yeah, so they did a vision morning. Everyone got together and did it, and it's been cool. And so each week, actually, that's why it's my turn tomorrow. Is each week everyone has gone through and actually explained their vision board, and said, "Here's what I put on. Here's why it's here." And it's been really cool to see. Uh, and it's been neat because we're not all from the same faith background or demographics, and so it's been really neat um, to see the differences and affirm the differences, and just be okay with that. Like it's been really cool. So
Yeah, I love that second step of everybody explaining what's important to them and why.
yeah,
Because then when you see a team member struggle, you could say, hey, it's not just, hey, remember your kids. It might be, hey,
yeah,
remember that vacation that you wanted to take when
yeah,
you didn't go because you were working.
yeah,
Let's take a look at why you're going to make the vacation this time.
totally. And once you make things public like that, it really helps. It really helps, especially when you're in a group of people that are close. And what's kind of neat too is as new people join our team, we will be just saying, hey, part of your first couple weeks, maybe once you're a couple months in, is we know you're staying and we're not firing you.
Yeah.
And you're a fit. It's like do a vision board, and then you're actually going to share it with the team and go around and ask everyone else about theirs, and just kind of
Yeah.
interact around that because I think it's important. So,
Yeah. It's definitely another way to see if they fit your core values too.
oh, huge. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. So let's dig into your current business now and
Okay.
tell us about your team structure and production.
Okay. So, right now, there's 13 of us all together. So starting with support, we have a full-time virtual assistant. Um, they're just really there to help with a lot of digital stuff. Some They've been doing some online buckets of leads and things like that, and just trying to figure that out. So yeah, the virtual assistant. Then we have a closing coordinator, and so she also does conveyancing because now we're on our own brokerage, but she actually is out of town. So Jill lives across the country. She's been with us for about 6 or 7 years, and so she started with us, but then so figure out how do we have her be completely removed from our business. And then we have a listing coordinator. So her role is essentially from as soon as an agent says, yeah, okay, let's get this house on the market, she jumps in and helps with arranging photos, getting floor plans done, getting it on the market. She meets with the seller. In all of our feature sheets, we've actually tried to start doing as long as the seller wants. It's like, so she goes through them and kind of says, hey, what are some things you want to say to the buyers that could be looking at your house and that kind of stuff, and just helps position it really, really well, gets it on the market, that kind of thing. And then we have a part-time bookkeeper who also is part of because of brokerage stuff. And then I think that's it for the support. And then we have, so we agent program essentially is what we've built out. And so it starts from being a part of our new agent program. So if you've never done real estate at all, period, you're brand new, you're in this role for at least 6 to 8 weeks. So you're learning the ISA role, you're learning a showing agent role, just to kind of get in there. And so from there, they can graduate into either the showing agent role or an actual buyer agent. And so right now we have one girl that's in, and she's actually, well, yeah, long stories, but she's in there. We have one, two, well, actual agents, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 7, 8 agents, and that's including Rebecca as well. And so then we have one of them is just listings, focused on listings. A couple of them are buyers and sellers, but they're also more senior agents. You don't just jump into that role right away. And then there's a couple that are just on the buying side learning. And so once an agent does about 24-ish transactions, then they can add in working with their sphere and repeat business with their listings. So we did that on purpose because you have to really learn one thing, learn it really well, and then add a layer onto it. Because the buying side of the business is so much more your hand through the process, where the listing is so much more strategic and analytical. And so the presentations are way different. Your meetings are way different. The whole process is different. So having them understand this, and it's not that you can't do both. Actually, if you do both, it helps you with either. Like if you know how a seller thinks, it can help you when you're writing an offer with a buyer. But you don't get to do that until you really know how to do the buy side. So that's
So kind of a specialist and a career track for your agent. So they can come in, figure out what's best for them, and then there's options to go up from there.
Yeah. And then the one thing is, at some point, because we're on brokerage, is to actually have, full-on partners where we'll end up having, smaller offices throughout the city to be able to run their own teams, basically running their own brokerage team within our brokerage kind of thing. So we're not like, we are a team-based brokerage, and I don't think there's anyone else in the city that's doing that. There are lots of hybrid models and this and that and all that kind of stuff, but for us, it's a team. We're not going to bring on side agents to try to do stuff. It's being really, really focused and specific. So
yeah, really cool.
Yeah.
What's the most significant change, or maybe something really important that you've taken away from working with Real Estate B School?
Don't chase shiny things. Just do what works, and just be really, and I kind of wish I learned this sooner, but I think there's a sense of I don't know if the right word is scarcity, but I feel like there's a sense of anxiousness or scarcity that if we don't jump onto the next thing, then we might miss something, which is a bunch of bullshit. Excuse my French. Because the thing is, you got to do what works. Like, I mean, some of the documents that you go back to, whether it's, I don't know, some kind of goal planning sheet, and essentially it's just like, you know what, I've been doing that for 7 years and it really works. I mean, I've been personally using, what is it called? The self journal. So I've been using the self journal, and this is the first one where I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is the 7th quarter of using the same thing. And that's the first time ever. And so it's just figure out what works and just work it. It's been something that's been really good. So
that's really good, because I think we can get caught up in there must be something better, or there's probably something else that will get me there. When really what you're mentioning is consistency. It doesn't matter the vehicle necessarily, it's consistency is the key.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And I see your question there, Dave. So right now with the count in sales and volume and structure, so we do have an ISA. That's one thing I did leave out. So Stefan is our inside sales. So just one person there. This year, I think we're at about 90, let's say 92, 91 transactions so far this year. Last year, we ended at about 206 transactions. So I think this year's been really weird with our market, and that's not an excuse, but it is at the same time. Just our spring market has been really, really slow. Snow, mortgage changes. It's just been super, super weird. So if that whole year, we would easily be over 100, 110 so far this year, but our market's just kind of a funny market this year. So yeah.
Very cool. And what's your goal to hit this year for transactions?
Our goal is 250. But my gut is we will probably hit about 210 to 220.
Okay.
Just because of our market this year. Everyone's kind of felt it. It's just different. So yeah.
So you mentioned in the beginning that success cannot be measured just by transactions alone. So if you hit the same number,
Mm-hmm.
what will you measure your success by this year?
That we survived our first year as a brokerage.
Yeah, that you made
We did,
lots of other changes.
oh, lots of other changes, that we didn't launder money out of our trust account, that we, like, whatever it is, like, there's a lot of changes that have happened. We're in the middle of trying to figure out office space. So if we can make that change successfully, and we're trying to figure out just in a commercial building versus just leasing. I'm not a renter, so I got to figure that out. So all those things, like, if we stay the same, we stay married, we are still like each other, all of that, right? As
Yeah.
long as I think one of the best success quotes, and I had it in my truck forever, but it was, success is liking who you are, it's liking how you do it, and it's just that, right? And I'll find it and I'll post it, but it's essentially that. It's just liking, it's liking what you do, liking how you do it, and liking who you
Mm.
are. And it's just, I think that's really good, right? So
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. I love that. Is there anything with your business journey and what you've been going through that we didn't ask you or you just haven't shared with us yet?
Well, I'm sure there is, top of my head.
Well, let me ask it a
So
different way. It's kind of a tough
yeah, totally.
question.
Yeah, it's kind of a,
Yeah. Did you feel prepared for each phase that you were in? And
no.
if you didn't, how did you push through?
uh I think there's like a country singer, and he has this little saying where it's like on his hat or whatever, it's like, head down, eyes up, where it's like, put your head, keep your eyes up, and just keep going. Don't know who it is, but I just remember seeing that somewhere. And I think part of it is, um, I think there's two different parts of it. There's willpower, and then there's skill power. And so willpower, this is the thing, I can do anything for 90 days. If this is something that's really important and there's a real strong meaning tied to it, I can do it. So that's willpower. I can will myself through that. But during that, I have to set up my life, business, set up the processes, set up whatever, to be able to have the skill and the environment to support what I'm doing. So now I have skills to create that, so then I can keep doing it, and it's not willpower, because this willpower will fade, right?
Yeah.
It's so much easier to say, hey, I'm gonna have a shake and a banana in the morning, but all of a sudden it's like 8:30, everyone's in bed, you're like, what can I eat? So much easier to do it then, because you've used so much of your decision during the day, right? And the willpower to say no or whatever it is. So setting up an environment is a second part of that I think a lot of people don't do. So so it's pushing your way through it, and it's using really good technology, and it's using really good systems. So I don't know what I did before Trello. um, we use it for our listings, we use it for our buyers, we use it, we're still just figuring out using it for our appointments. I use it for my weekly schedule and planning. Like, this book is great, but it only will get me so far. So I can dump ideas in there, I can put all of our big meetings with the teams in there, and everyone, not everyone, but most people will jump in and use it. And but it's just those kind of things, and using the right systems to
Yeah.
help you. And I think that's part of your environment to help you in. So
Yeah. That's really awesome. So one part of our show here is I like to do what's called the lightning round. And so asking you some kind of fast questions, and just tell us the answer that comes to your mind. So are you ready?
we'll see.
All right. What keeps you up at night when it comes to your business?
Lately it's the feeling of a lot of people counting on me.
Very good. What was holding you back from building a real estate team?
Fear of going too fast. So, and actually, I'll back that up. The differences between my thoughts and Rebecca's thoughts, and my thoughts are faster than her. We had to sync them, and we're not there, but we're figuring it out.
That's really cool. That's really good. I love that. What's the best advice you've ever received about business?
It's just real estate. Let's go with that.
It's so good. Yeah. Can you share one of your personal daily or possibly weekly habits that you believe contribute to your success?
Two things. It's actually in this, so it's in like the DYD stuff as well. But for me, what I do is it's things that I'm grateful for. But then it's the other part is Brene Brown's permission slips. So I will most days, today is blank because it was a crazy day, but most days flip through probably most of these books. It's kind of saying, I give permission for Jared to do today. And that's been good. And when I have weeks that I don't do that, it really can feel off. So.
And do you do those permission slips daily or are those weekly?
It's a daily thing. When I know that I'm walking into something or just got to focus on something, it's just, I give Jared permission to be something like, I give Jared permission to be open and honest and real and share from the heart. Like it would be something like that.
Yeah. Those are really awesome. Very cool. I love that one. And you mentioned an internet resource like Trello, but anything else that you use that you're sort of in love with?
I am a long believer. I've used Evernote for a super long time, and I just dump everything in there. So I have a scanner, and it just scans into an inbox in Evernote, and you can search PDFs. So all of my invoices and receipts for everything get put in there. I don't put any notes, but you can search PDFs. So I could write in $17.36, or my bookkeeper can, and she can pull up every receipt that was $17.36.
Oh, that's cool.
Ever been in there. So I love Evernote. Most of the team doesn't use it. I tried forcing people to use it, but it was a horrible program for everybody else. No, I'm just kidding.
I love it. That is a good one. I like Evernote as well. Can you recommend one book that you just resonate with or really like, or something that's helped you? A book that's helped you?
I'm just looking at the books. Actually, I'll just share the two that are sitting on my desk. How's that?
Okay.
Because there's lots of books, but this one, Fanatical Prospecting, is really, really good. I was just sharing it with a coaching client. That's why it's on here. But anyone who joins our team reads this. It's just your no BS guide to figure out how to prospect. It says it like this. And one that I've been digging into is just the $1 Million Real Estate Team. And it's pretty basic. But there's just a lot of great thoughts and things in there that have really helped. Like the one that we'll start working on is building a brand ambassador program. And so instead of it being like this vendor relationship thing, whatever, it's bigger than that. So yeah, so things like that, some cool ideas. So
yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so one last question. If you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Quit. No, just kidding. If I had to do it all over again, what would I do differently? I don't know. And I know that sounds lame, but I think if I had to do it all over again, I would think I would have tried to enjoy it more. Mm-hmm. Like I look back and I think I took it, and I still do, but I think it's easy to take it too seriously. Um, yeah.
Yeah, it really is. Jared, thank you for being open and honest and answering all our questions.
Yeah, for sure.
And I know a lot of people are going to get so much good information from this and be able to connect with their own story. So I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I know we do have a couple more questions. So if you guys have any questions, type them in the Q&A box. And but one for you, Jared, is when you did hire the ISA you have now, how did that impact your business and what's their daily routine?
Okay. When we did hire the ISA, how did it impact our business? At first, it didn't do anything.
I think
But
that's good for
again,
people to know, though, as well, right?
yeah.
It's not an immediate.
No, it's not it's not even like a Band-Aid solution. Like it's trying to figure out. I saw someone make some mention of this. They said it's like working your ass off for 2 years to try to figure this out to be able to have a better next 15 years or something like that. And so that's this kind of role. That's what this is. And so for us, it was, yeah, it's mindset. It's getting them to really understand that they are the guardian and the keeper of the marketing dollars. And it took us like 4 or 5 years to hire someone that even thought that way. And then finally finding and now guiding them. So their daily routine can come down to, well, they have different roles or different, I don't know if you want to call it buckets, but different into like spaces that they're calling priorities. So a lot of times, I don't have it in front of me exactly what it is, but they'll go through their A's, their B's, their C's. They'll go through on pond leads. So we have PDs, so potential buyers, PSs, potential they're calling. We actually haven't even gone into FSBOs. We can't call expired, so we're trying different ways to get in front of those people. So there's just a lot of different things, but it's a routine that they kind of go through to make it work. And one of the best advice, so if anyone has an ISA, one of the best advice that we got recently is for them to really think an entrepreneur. So they can't. So entrepreneur means, in my mind, it's you're internally inside of an entrepreneur world, and for them, they have to think outside of the box. Where, and I think a lot of people either have this employee or employer mindset. And so when you hire someone, usually they have the employer mindset. They would go do it on their own. And so if they have this employer mindset, you're trying to get them to think like an entrepreneur. So I think the way that we've kind of just broke through literally in the last couple of weeks was, here's the box. You get to be in the box for maybe an hour or two a day, but the rest of the day, you can't be in that box. So you got to get creative, figure it out. I don't care what you do. I don't care how many hours it takes. Here's the minimums. Here's the goals. Here's what you got to go for. As long as there's forward momentum for that, the results of the appointments that we need at this moment. But as long as you keep pushing and keep doing it, like it will happen. And so be creative and be outside of that box. So
Yeah, that's really good. Is there any other questions that you guys have? We have a few minutes left with Jared with us. Any questions about, how he grew his team, how, he's growing his team today? Anything we didn't ask him that you want to know? Otherwise, we will let you all go today on this Monday afternoon. This is kind of a specific question, but what is your spend on lead gen? And maybe the better question is a little bit leads per agent, because lead spend will sort of differ per market, per goal, per people. But talk about leads per agent, and maybe talk a little bit about the accountability for your lead spend and your leads per agent.
Okay. So leads per agent, I mean, I think the magic number is between 40 to 50 leads per agent. Um, we don't have, like, in some worlds everything goes to the ISA. In our world, it's both. Uh, so that's a big part of it. Accountability. Um, we're always working through that. And so one thing we've started doing that the team, it was their idea, is we have kind of a group chat, kind of we use Slack for that. But everyone has a daily call-in, check-in channel. And so when someone's calling, they say, I'm calling. And then at the end of their call session, they mark a little note and say how many people they called, who they talked to, that kind of stuff. And that was their idea. And it's been going pretty good, because all of a sudden you're like, whoa, so-and-so's calling in at 6:30 at night on a Thursday. Like, good for you. And I think that has spurred on other people to be like, wait. You're like the new person. If you're doing that, I probably should do it too. And so it's kind of been neat to watch that competition a little bit. So I think that's been really so.
Yeah, that's really good public accountability. And especially when they come up with it themselves, you know, they're saying, hey, we're a team, let's do this together, and not just focusing, you know, internally on their own numbers. So I love that. What was instrumental to growing over 100 transactions a year for you?
I think the big thing in growing over 100 transactions per year, I think it was mindset. And the reason I say that is there's all of these tools and things and places you can always get more leads. Getting leads is not the problem, but it's also, how do you talk to those leads? How do you teach people to talk to those leads? It's the mindset of everybody. And I think with getting over 100 transactions per year, well, it also depends. Are you at 20 or are you at 80? The big difference in itself. First off, but getting over 100, if that's the magic number for you, I think it's just it's looking at the vision side of it and saying, okay, to have a team that is doing over 100, who do I have to become that attracts that team, and who do I need to become allows them to do that? And so do I have to become better at X or Y or whatever it is? So I don't think there's this one answer for that. It's really is, what do you need to be better at that you're blocking yourself from doing? Because as soon as you figure that out, then at some point you'll break through, and everyone around you will also be able to break through. So
yeah, I love that. I'd add a couple things just to go along with what you're saying. You have to have the right people in the right seats.
If that too.
Hit 100 transactions, it's most likely not you alone. It could be, but most likely it's not. You probably have some team members with you. They have to want it. They have to get it, and the capacity to do it, right? It's just that whole people analyzer thing. Secondly,
but to also, go ahead. I was just going to say, but to also say that is, I think that like when I hear that pressure, and I feel that I gotta have it right.
Yeah.
But that's not the case. Like, you gotta be continually looking for the right people, and good people will leave, and that's okay, because there will be someone else. But it's knowing that what seats do you need to be filled, and what do you need, and who do you need, and those things will just figure themselves out as long as you're looking for it.
Yeah.
So don't get stuck on someone staying or leaving. Like our main guy, who's our listing guy, went to the UK for, he said, but he'll probably be gone for a couple of years. And it's like, shoot.
Yeah.
But if I was tied to him, that'd be wrong, right? So I think that's part of it. I mean, to hijack, but
no,
number
that's
2,
really
take
good.
it away, Stacy.
That is good, because people do feel a lot of pressure. And another thing you mentioned earlier was keeping that funnel full. And that way we don't have to have so much, worry if someone does leave, or we want to let go of someone that isn't right. We can't if we don't have people in the funnel. So that's important too. Good point.
Leads in the funnel.
Yeah.
Like if you feel like you have to work with somebody, well, then there's a problem.
Yeah.
Because it's that as well, right?
Yeah. And you can always top grade if you only have, one good fit and you really need 2 or 3. But yeah, it's just a process and keeping that on top of mind all the time. And
Yeah.
then secondly, just inspecting what you expect, right? So like you mentioned earlier in the call, if you're going to expect someone to do it yourself with them, and then have them do it. And then continually, if you set a standard, there needs to be consequences. Otherwise, it's just a
Yeah.
suggestion. And you also need to know if they're hitting it. You need to be right in there with them, making sure that
Yeah.
those things are being hit. And then the third thing I thought of that you kind of mentioned was like doubling down on the basics. So it doesn't take
Yeah.
multiple lead sources. It doesn't take multiple, spending tons of money to really get over 100 or honestly over 200. It's just doubling down, using what you got, and really putting some effort and eyes on it and consistent action.
Totally.
Yeah. Very cool. All right. Well, that kind of wraps up our time. Jared, thank you so much for your time today. And as always, we appreciate you, wish you all the best, and we will talk with you all soon. Take care.